The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the February Layer 7 office hours. Today, we're going to be hearing from Greg Thompson, the product manager for Layer 7. He's going to be sharing with us a little bit of information about the new version management capabilities of Layer 7 API Service Manager. During his presentation, I am going to unmute all of you, right? Which means it's going to be an interactive session, and he kind of wants folks to just ask questions as he's going along his presentation. So feel free, while he's presenting, take yourself off mute and just ask questions as we're going through. Now, if you, for whatever reason, choose and would rather type your question in, that's fine too. There is still the panel option. There's a little section on your panel for questions. You can type them in. And then also, just as a reminder, all of our office hours are recorded and they're put on our YouTube channel. So you can go back. There is a playlist for office hours and look at any of the previous Layer 7 office hours that we've had. And while Greg is doing his presentation, I'll actually put in the chat for everyone the link to our YouTube channel in case you want to go back and listen to this one or any of the previous office hours. Okay, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Greg.
All right, thanks, Pam. Yes, so today we're going to talk a little bit first about this idea or concept of Layer 7 API Security Manager. And essentially, it's an evolution of our existing API developer portal that's basically broadening its scope. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. Then we'll dig deeper, and I'll showcase some of the work we're doing around the first phase of what we're deemed as infrastructure management, which the first phase of that is something called version management, specifically targeted in the first release to handle gateway patching for the monthly platform patches as well as the new monthly service patches. So we'll go through that. As Pam said, ask questions along the way. Don't hesitate. Interactive is great. And with that, I will dig right on in. So some of the stuff we're talking about today is going to be future roadmap. We always show this disclaimer that this is our plan as of now, which our plans are subject to change for lots of many reasons. So nothing here is set in stone, but this is kind of our current thought process at the moment. If any of you have seen our kind of overall go-to-market strategy, these are basically the main pillars, right? So the idea of API management, intelligence, infrastructure management, AI governance, right? These are the kind of the main kind of management areas, and these are the areas that the API Security Manager is going to be covering. And then at the bottom is the runtime security and integration capabilities, right? This is the the API gateway and the soon-to-come AI gateway from the Layer 7 side. So this is more the runtime, whereas the top part of this is all the management of the runtime and surround around that. So what is API Security Manager? It's essentially an evolution of the API developer portal. Right, so the goal here is really for it to become the single point that you can observe and control everything related to Layer 7, right, including the API gateways and the soon coming AI gateways, and the portals themselves, right? So, you think of the portal as classically the API management capabilities, right? That was the ability where you can publish your APIs, you can come in and discover APIs and get keys and such. So that's kind of the classical portal use case. That's still absolutely going to be there. And then we're building on top of that with the additional capabilities for intelligence, infrastructure management, and ultimately AI governance. So the idea here really is to have that central observation point, right? Quickly find issues as we talk through some of the intelligence capabilities of, looking for things like certificates that may be about to expire, policy configurations that might be missing certain security assertions, many different examples there. From an infrastructure management point of view, this is really about, how do you handle upgrades and patches and being able to do that from a single place. And then ultimately, taking action against potential threats that are detected through the intelligence capabilities. From a logical architecture point of view, we're still separating out the classical API management enrollment with the portal. So if you know today with the portal, you basically enroll your gateways with the portal, and then it can begin to publish APIs and policy templates and such down to those gateways. So that remains intact. That remains working the way it is today. From an ASM point of view, the API Security Manager, it can then be deployed centrally to overlook both those kind of classical portal use cases as well as gateways. And it can also be used with gateway-only deployments. So I think one key here is, the use of portal today is absolutely not required. And I put here a note that's, this is one example architecture. You may co-locate your ASM and portal use cases together on the same node. It really gets down to, how many environments you have, how many instances of portal you have, for example, to whether you want to unify that installation or you kind of want to bring it up to its own separate instance, so it's kind of overlooking the holistic infrastructure instead of maybe just part of it. All right. And just to reiterate this point, essentially, if you're not using the API portal today, which I know a lot of our customers are not, right? You're not required to use the portal, right? So, if you don't want to use the portal for API management use cases, that's totally fine, right? You can still leverage the ASM capabilities to, manage upgrades, to do the configuration intelligence capabilities, and continue to work with the gateways, just like you are today via policy manager and such. So really the target use case for the early stages of this are really for those gateway only customers, but we're absolutely not excluding any customer at this point. So yeah, this is just a really key point that you don't need to go and enroll all your APIs with the portal and all that to get the benefits of the API Security Manager. Okay, hopefully, so just kind of walk through those kind of four main categories of ASM. The first category is API management. Hopefully you're all familiar with this today, right? This is the capability of the existing API developer portal, right? You talked about earlier about this is where you can publish your APIs and your products and provide that self-service experience with governance and just basically put all the controls and discoverability around your APIs. Right, so all that remains unchanged. That's absolutely a key part of the overall ASM. And as I mentioned before, you can deploy, the portal / ASM with just this capability or without this capability and leverage the other ones, right? So it is going to be modular from that point of view. Configuration intelligence. This was launched as an experimental release a few months back. I failed to remember the exact date off the top of my head, but I know there was an office hours where we covered this. Feel free to go back to those recordings to kind of brush up on what all this provides. But this is essentially the idea of monitoring the gateway configuration. So both configuration of entities such as certificates, the gateway itself in terms of being able to get information about version and some of the properties of like the Java JVM parameters, things like that, as well as the policy entities as well. So this idea is you have this rules engine, you can create all kinds of various rules, and the example shown here in the screenshot is a rule that was set up to look for certificates that are going to be expiring in the next 60 days. Right, so you can create all kinds of rules looking for various conditions, and the idea here is, again, from a central place, be able to quickly discover issues or potential issues before they become actual issues, right? So, for example, if a certificate expires, right, that service becomes unusable. It basically stops allowing traffic to it. Example of an insecure JDBC connection, right? Maybe you want to be aware that there's a gateway out there configured to a database that's not using a secure connection, right? So you can create the rules to define, all these various different kinds of conditions, and then those can be displayed on a dashboard. and also be configured to send out a report on a defined cadence as well. And then in the future, we'll be expanding that as well to be able to do more with that, right? So maybe take intelligent actions, real-time alerts, things like that. But for today, it's basically this rules-based reporting infrastructure. And also just to call out, so I did say that was already previously released and experimental. I know a number of partners and customers have put their hands on that, gave us some feedback. A lot of that feedback has been incorporated, and this will be included in the upcoming portal release, which is happening in the next day or so. I'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. The next capability from an intelligence standpoint is this idea of traffic intelligence. This is a little more forward-looking. This is not something that we have quite yet today, but it is something that we're absolutely looking at and planning to get into the product in the near future. So the idea really is about leveraging AI to look at the traffic, take corrective actions, get more advanced business insights. Looking for things like detecting patterns of unusual patterns that might be malicious in intent. Detecting an active threat and being able to respond to that and actually stop it in progress. Other use cases like looking at if there's a quota set up and a customer or user is nearing that quota, being able to proactively notify and alert that situation is happening so that an action can be taken. So again, this is not there yet. This is something we're looking to do in the future, but it is part of our overall vision for the API Security Manager. The next main capability or category here is the infrastructure management. Basically, the idea here first will be version management, where we're looking to essentially simplify how you can control your management of gateway patches, right? To make sure you have your CVEs under control in terms of having the latest, greatest patches, being able to quickly see which nodes are upgraded, which nodes are not, and just really give you that single place to come and see the overall patch status of all your gateways. We'll eventually expand this to patching of the ASM itself, right? So ASM as well, if you're running it on a like our Debian OVA image, for example. Again, we issue patches for those, and you would also be able to kind of self-patch the ASM. But the first phase of this will be focused on the gateway, specifically the monthly platform patches and the monthly software patches, which I will be showcasing in just a couple minutes here. Ultimately, within infrastructure management, we're going to be adding, centralized policy authoring. So this is for those that are familiar with PM2, right? This would basically be PM2 running on the ASM stack and being able to remotely connect to various gateway nodes, and then naturally evolve that to the ability to migrate policy and configuration, manage and deploy bundles, and potentially integration with external repos if bundles are perhaps stored in a GitHub repo, for example. So as I mentioned, the first phase of this is really focused on version management. The other capabilities are a little farther down the road, but definitely planned as part of our overall API Security Manager. The next part is really around the AI governance capabilities, right? So as we're looking at launching an AI gateway, obviously this ASM would be the central management for that. And as part of that would come in the ability to really use ASM to do things like register LLMs and MCP servers and agents. And just really help basically track the overall observability for usage and cost around that AI environment. So again, not quite there yet with this today, but this is again part of our overall strategy for the ASM. Last slide here, just showing a kind of a snapshot of time of the roadmap. So as I mentioned before, bottom left, configuration intelligence, that was launched in experimental mode back in kind of late 25. We have our Portal 5.4.1 release that is slated to come out tomorrow. As far as I know, everything's on track, so that should be, that date should be kept as far as I know. Of course, always something could happen, but don't think so. But the key here is the configuration intelligence capabilities will be part of that Portal 5.4.1 release. So that has progressed from experimental and will now be part of the portal in this new release. The next phase, we're going to be launching what I'm about to show you in terms of version management. That'll be coming as an experimental release shortly after the Portal 5.4.1 release, so probably in the next couple weeks or so. Then it would be slated to move into the Portal 5.4.2 release, which will be happening mid-year. So we do plan to include version management at that point of view and advanced version management beyond just MPP and MSP, but also doing things like minor upgrades and the portal MPP as well. And then expand on our configuration intelligence capabilities to ensure kind of complete coverage of all the various gateway entities. Then later in 26, we'd have the 5.4.3 release of portal, continuing to kind of complete the version management functionality. So this would be getting into like major upgrades of the gateway. From a configuration intelligence point of view, getting into actually bringing in the API management entities from the traditional portal today. So things like API keys, applications, things like that aren't necessarily part of the gateway config. Then at that point, we kind of see the formal name change coming into play. So while we're starting to call this ASM now, officially we're still calling the product the API Developer Portal. By the time that early 2027 rolls around, we think it's going to be pretty well closing out a lot of the capabilities we want to add. And so we're thinking the name change to API Security Manager will likely happen then. And we're looking at adding the ability to do policy authoring and then getting into some of the migration capabilities. And then likely like an ASM 6.1, which will start to add in some of the AI governance capabilities, an actual MCP server for layer 7, and then getting into a 6.2 release, which will have a lot more of the the observation capabilities and intelligence from around an AI perspective, as well as a lot of the AI governance capabilities. So again, some things, these are all kind of future looking. This is kind of a plan in time. Some things may move forward, some things move out a little bit, but this is, our thought process in the current time. Are there any questions on any of that so far? So the next thing I'm going to do is actually walk through the current state of our version management capabilities. But before I do that, I wanted to make sure I had any opportunity for any questions on any of this that I've shared so far.
Yeah, hi, it's Dave here. The only question I had really was around platforms. Yeah, we're currently migrating workloads across to OpenShift. And yeah, portal integration is a little bit of a thing at the moment. When does that fit into this timescale?
You talk about like kind of running the portal on OpenShift, or I'm not sure if I completely follow the question.
So we currently are actually running the portal on OpenShift.
Yeah. Okay.
And it kind of works with the non-ephemeral gateways. But with the ephemeral gateways, ideally we'd move to ephemeral gateways completely for all the workloads. And the fact that the portal integration doesn't currently support ephemeral gateways is a bit of a,
okay, the ephemeral
thing. Yeah.
I think I missed that word in the initial ask. Okay. Yeah, so I mean, technically ephemeral gateways would be supported even today. I think the only requirement is at that point you probably don't want to use OTK, right? Like you don't want to have an OTK on all your gateways, and you would need to leverage an external key store like a Redis. So that would be the only real factor, right? Because we wouldn't have the local database there, so we would expect the API key storage to happen on Redis, and then maybe decentralize. So if you want to use OTK, you can decentralize that. We have the portal capability that supports registering with OAuth providers via the dynamic client registration interface. So that can work with kind of a centralized OTK instance or another auth provider. But that, kind of moving to that architecture should allow for the ephemeral gateway support today, though.
Okay, sounds promising. Thank you.
Sure. All right. Any other questions? All right. If not, let me switch over. This moment. Go with this.
Yeah, looks good.
Perfect. All right. So I'm just get logged in. So this is a developed version of our existing API portal. So this what I'm showing now will be in the experimental release that will happen after our next portal release tomorrow. So I'm just kind of logging in here. This will give you an idea. So if you do have a combined portal with all the ASM capabilities, you'll see the managed capabilities. These are all the classical API management things that you would be accustomed to seeing in the existing portal today. You'll notice a new menu here for infrastructure, and then the intelligence capabilities it will show up as an intelligence. And that'll have a build-out menu later as more capabilities come in there. But today we're going to focus on infrastructure management and specifically the idea of version management. So the first thing I'm going to do is click on versions under infrastructure. What you'll notice here, if I can get my GoToMeeting pop-up out of the way, what you'll notice here is when you log in that you will see this idea of a metadata, compatibility metadata at the top right here. So what we will begin to do is actually publish a metadata file that will essentially provide a listing of all the patches, all the versions, compatibility between those, and that'll be a centralized place. So that'll actually, I believe it's going to be hosted on our TechDocs website. So you'll be able to update that file periodically. And if you want to update this file, you just basically click the upload button, and then you'll be able to bring it in. So one assumption we did make to start with is that we did not want to assume that your ASM or portal could always call out to the internet, right? I know some of our customers, have air-gapped environments, and calling out, is not necessarily possible. So that's why we focus, on making sure the air-gapped part of this would work first. And so you would, have to go through this kind of manual upload process to get the metadata. But that is certainly something we could do in the future, is looking at kind of automatically pulling down information, over time. So when I'm logged in from the version management capabilities, you'll see here that I have basically 2 monthly platform patches. So there's a January 26th, a February 10th, and then there's 3 software patches. These are the MSPs. Now note that the dates on these, some of these are fictional, right? This is a test environment, so if you see a patch that you weren't aware of, don't panic. These are not necessarily the official patches. These are just kind of test names and such for our purposes. But you'll see from the versions, you'll see what kind of patch is it? Is the platform, is a software patch, the date it was added. Because we're using the metadata, you may not actually have the patch itself available. So the check mark indicates whether or not the actual patch was uploaded to the ASM. So once you have the version, the metadata file will let you know the version exists, but you will need to go and download that patch from the Broadcom support site, just as you would today, then upload it to the ASM. And once you've done that, the check mark will appear to indicate that the ASM does actually have the patch file. You'll also be able to see how many clusters are running this version or have this patch, and how many nodes within across all those clusters. At the very top, you see the kind of the purple. As you have more versions over time, there'll be different colors representing different major versions. But that just kind of helps visualize the distribution of versions across your various gateways. If I were to click on one of these, so let's I'll just pick the second one here. This will let you know what's the minimum gateway version required, the minimum platform version, PMS, that's the patch management service, so that's what runs on the gateway itself. And so for those of you who are patching your gateways today, hopefully you're familiar with PMS. That's an existing gateway component. It also tells you the size of the file itself. You can actually go and delete. So this one has the patch file, I believe, apparently. But you can go and delete that patch file from the ASM if you'd like. And if it doesn't have the file, this will be an upload button where you'd be able to upload that file. If you go to the upgrade tab, this gives you the indication of where this patch could be applied. So for example, cluster test 3 and cluster test 4 have this upgrade indicator to denote that this patch could be applied to those clusters. And if I expand the cluster, you'll be able to see the nodes within the cluster. So again, this one has 3 nodes. We see the addresses of those. And again, not all nodes within the cluster may be on that latest version. And so again, this will indicate specifically which nodes could be upgraded. What you'll note from the cluster level at the top, this will always indicate the lowest level, even though some nodes within that cluster might have been upgraded. So just kind of letting you know that not everything's upgraded. This is the lowest version that is present within that cluster. And then the deploy tab will show you kind of a view of where and where this patch or this version has been deployed across the infrastructure. Right? Are there any questions on any of that so far? Right. If not, I'm going to now switch to the gateways menu item under infrastructure. This will also kind of warn you that, hey, there are new downloads that are available and give you the link to the support site to go retrieve those. This also gives you the overall view of all your clusters that are currently registered with the ASM. And likewise, we'll let you know where things can be upgraded. So if I pick cluster test 2, for example, give you very similar information that we were just seeing on the version tab. And it will basically, again, give you that view of what can be upgraded, what has been applied, and just kind of give you this place to start off the upgrade sequence. So I'll go ahead and do that. So let's pick cluster 2, test 2 that I have open now. It has 3 nodes. If I click the little up arrow here, that will bring me into this view. This lets me know that this cluster is currently running the 11.2.1 MSP from 2.19, and that there's an MSP from 2.25 that is available to be applied. If there are more future versions, you would see additional versions down below. And there will be kind of a timeline indicator to let you know that perhaps you can't jump all the way to the end, right? So for example, if I had a 11 or 12.0 below this, right, which I think will be our next major version down the road, I may not be able to jump straight to 12.0 before I jump to maybe another 11.2.2 or something like that, right? But this will let you know how far you can go in one single upgrade sequence, and will only allow you to select that. So if I want to do this upgrade, the first thing, and some of the UI that I'm showing will change a little bit. I know there's some changes. For example, we're going to go ahead and not have this checkbox here, but we do think it's important to make sure that you still need to do backups, right? So if you're running in a VMware environment with virtual appliances, you still should do a snapshot. things can go wrong during upgrades, and you know, as much as we'd love to magically be able to make all that kind of come back, sometimes that's just not possible. So you know, the standard advice of always do a backup before you do the upgrade applies, and we're making you kind of say, yes, I did that. But once you do that, you click select nodes. This will then give you an indication of what nodes within this cluster you can upgrade. So for example, cluster gateway 1 and 2, they're not compatible. I think they were already upgraded, so they're not able to apply this upgrade again. But I can go ahead and pick gateway 3, which has not already been upgraded. And what this will do, if you expand that, you'll see the various steps of the upgrade process. So basically from start to stop, it'll download the patch file, it's going to stop the gateway, it's going to install the patch, it's going to clean up the patch, reboot that node, and then actually start the gateway. So we'll see if Murphy's Law works today and everything goes wrong when I click start upgrade, but hopefully that will not be the case. Let's see, yeah, and of course Murphy's Law did get me there, and it did not actually start working on that one. Let's pick another one. Let's see if there's something specific about that service. Let's try this one. All right, yeah, so this one's working here. So I mentioned this is development in progress, so there's going to be a few little glitches here for now. But yeah, we'll see here. So this is applying, I think, an MPP in this case. It started, it's now downloading. You'll see log files showing up. So we will show as much log information as we can about what's happening. You know, the download, for this case, it's actually pushing that patch file to the actual gateway node. And this, you know, will take a little bit of time based on the file size. But what will happen once it gets past this download step is it will then, you know, proceed on down to the next step of stopping the gateway service, doing the actual installation, and then cleaning up and rebooting. So we'll give this just another minute or two here. In the meantime, while we're waiting, are there any other questions so far? No questions. All right. What about just general, based on what you've seen so far, any reaction, any feedback?
Hey, Greg, this is Tom. I'll come off mute and fill your dead space for you. If the patch or the upgrade required also the database upgrade to run, would that happen as part of this as well, or would still be a manual step?
It will, yeah, it will do that part as well. It's kind of hidden behind the window. One thing I can do, and I'll show this, so I can go ahead and minimize this window. You'll notice that the kind of the top right section here lets you know that there's an upgrade in progress, it shows the status. But I was coming over here, so if you see this nodes where it says DB only, so it does know like which nodes have the database in that cluster, and it will also do the database upgrade as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And once this is minimized, I can expand it back. So if I click back here, and while we were doing that, it did proceed, right? The download completed, so we do see that that is now complete. It's in the process of stopping the gateway, so we see that that happened. It's now proceeding to actually install the patch. So this patch installation is now in progress, and that also takes a little bit of time, so it's not going to be an instantaneous completion here. But once that does complete, well, actually it did complete quicker than I thought it would. It cleans up the gateway, it restarts the gateway, and then ultimately stops the Kafka service that was basically being used to communicate between the ASM and the gateway. So yeah, at this point we have a successful upgrade completed, and I can dismiss this window and confirm that. And then basically when refreshed, this view within the screen will come back and let me know that it's upgraded.
Yeah, so not a question, just an observation really. This looks a lot better than our current process. We just need to get some firewall rules sorted out to allow that to download the patch files directly. And once we have that, then yeah, that's going to make life a bit easier, I think.
Yeah, it's great to hear. That's the goal, right? I know it's you know, especially when you have a lot of gateways, there's a lot of manual processes that are involved, and hopefully this will help to speed that up. And then of course, just like everything in our API portal today, this is all API driven, so you can actually use the APIs of the ASM to drive this as well. So it doesn't all have to be done from the UI either, right? So it's just something to take note of. Yeah,
well, we've got 46 gateways, so kind of anything that tries to automate that process slightly and kind of make it more scalable is a good thing.
Yeah, very good.
Can this upgrade, I mean, like instead of click button, can this be like, say, like set as a scheduling job? Like, because usually like lots of time, like we prefer the upgrade to do like between 3 to 6 window, right?
Yeah, I think that's certainly something we've thought about. That could certainly be an enhancement. The other thing, as I mentioned, like this, everything done here can be done via APIs. So you could certainly have a scheduled automation task that called the APIs for you at a certain time as well.
Okay.
The day out of the box, but yeah, the schedules is absolutely something we've talked about and kind of have in our plans, but I couldn't tell you exactly when at this point.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, yeah, any other feedback or questions?
Will this upgrade work for the software gateways?
For the software gateways?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, the intent is it will work for software as well as the virtual gateways, and then ultimately as well for any Kubernetes-based gateways, right? That'll be more of, perhaps changing image tags versus actually downloading update files. But yeah, the intention is to really support all the form factors.
Okay.
But Greg, obviously for the software gateways, right, you wouldn't necessarily be able to upgrade the database because that would be running externally or elsewhere, not necessarily on the gateway itself.
Yeah, potentially, like the MPP would not apply for a software gateway. It would just be the MSP. Yeah, there's definitely some differences, but yeah, the goal is to be able to manage kind of regardless of form factor here in one place.
Yeah, it certainly makes the upgrade process look a lot less scary, and hopefully it will encourage some of our customers to actually keep up with the changes. Because yeah, no, looks great.
Awesome, thank you. All right, anyone else? Okay, if not, I appreciate everyone's time and I appreciate your feedback. Be on the lookout over the next couple of weeks or so. I don't have the exact time, but be on the lookout for announcement of this becoming available as an experimental release. And I think the way we would probably do that is host an environment where you can log in and try this out and give us feedback. And then hopefully it'll be in the actual portal release mid-year as more of an available out-of-the-box feature. So yep, with that, thank you all. I appreciate your time. Have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, and thanks everyone. I did put the link to YouTube in the chat, but if you have questions or can't find something, feel free to reach out to me directly, Pam Deason. And thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, great stuff. Thanks so much, Greg.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.